Dalia, thank you very much for elaborating on the article as well as your thoughts on how to proceed with Turkey-Egyptian relations. Now, I will give 5 more minutes to each of our panelists, but in the meantime, I would like to ask our participants to start preparing their questions and especially indicating who they would like to pose that question to. So, Ambassador Göktürk, I will hold on, unmute you and ask you to. Yes, I think you can excellently talk now. So the floor is yours. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I will try to respond very quickly, point by point, to the statements by Ambassador Salahattin and Ms. Zaida. Now, economic cooperation, Turkey's economic involvement in the Middle East is the engine of its footprint. It has been the engine for the last several decades and will continue to be so in the years to come. So I totally agree with the ambassador that Turkish-Egyptian relations should be further expanded. When I took over as ambassador in late 2005, the Turkish investments in Egypt were a humble $60 million. By the time I left, towards the end of 2009, they were close to $3 billion US dollars, and it included a range of industries. They started with textiles, and then, as Ambassador Salatin has mentioned, it moved to automotives, manufacturing of buses and other vehicles, and also electronics. And I don't know how many times I made those visits to the industrial zones in Cairo or in Alexandria or elsewhere. Now, for regional cooperation, as expected, Libya has been raised as an area where Turkey and Egypt can cooperate instead of check each other's moves. I totally agree. And I also appreciate, also as an ambassador who has served in your beautiful country for 4 years, what security means from your west. The uncontrolled desert zones, which Egypt has to check, to keep an eye continuously. So if there is turmoil in Libya, it does impact on the Egyptian security. And if also an ideology is involved, it becomes even more so. So I totally agree. On the other hand, it should be the both countries I'm sure will come to terms with the fact that Turkey has long-standing interests, economic, political, and otherwise, in Libya in the decades to come. So I think proceeding on the basis of bilateral cooperation between Turkey and Egypt in furthering both countries' interests and security in Libya will be the right thing to do. Yes, when it comes to regional cooperation, I should also mention cooperating in the Eastern Mediterranean, also in the maritime field. We know that the agreement between the delimitation agreement between Egypt and Greece has certain implications also regarding Turkey's own claims in the area. But we also take note of Egyptian position regarding the island of Meis, Costa Rica, tiny land just southwest of Turkey's Mediterranean the coastline, and international law has resolved similar issues elsewhere in the world. There are multiple examples, and all were resolved prioritizing the mainland. A small island should not be allowed to prevent a mainland country, a mainland in the sense that it constitutes the bulk of the Eastern Mediterranean, the Anatolian Peninsula, cannot be prevented from having its fair share in the maritime areas of Eastern Mediterranean. Um, on the Middle East, yes, Turkey and Egypt can work even closer on both addressing the immediate need, the emergency needs, that is the humanitarian situation, the growing humanitarian situation, the tragedy in Gaza. And yes, we both countries should come in a very forceful way, in a very determined fashion, to offer their gentle hand to the Palestinians at this juncture. But beyond that, Turkey and Egypt can play a very vital role in the resolution of the conflict. This is not to say that Turkey should act in the negotiating process itself, as Egypt will be involved, but regionally, the two countries should put their weight in the Eastern Mediterranean in a fashion that it will guarantee any peace that will emerge from a two-state negotiation. That is something that has to be followed up in the aftermath of the ongoing war in Gaza. Regional cooperation, of course, is a broader concept, and it is not limited to the Palestinian question. I would like to recall two anecdotes that I personally witnessed in the year 2003 when I was Deputy Director General for the Middle East. This was the beginning of January, and the Turkish Prime Minister then, Abdullah Gül, decided to make a shuttle trip to the regional capitals so that the impending war in Iraq could be in some fashion stopped, or at least its ramifications can be contained. So we started with Syria. But this was a time when the United States was putting pressure on Turkey, tremendous pressure, in fact, to secure its cooperation to open the northern front for its invasion of Iraq. And on the other hand, the Turkish economy was in shambles and was in need of fresh credit and structural support. So these two things made the regional countries, as well as many in Europe, conclude that Turkey was going to cave in some fashion to the American pressure. All of a sudden, Turkey came up with this proposal after that visit of the prime minister with a regional initiative called the Iraq's Neighbors Initiative. This was the result of this trip, and when we arrived in Cairo, accompanying the prime minister with a very nucleic delegation, we had already met with late President Mubarak in Sharm el Sheikh, and then we flew to Cairo and visited the headquarters of the Arab League. Amr Musa welcomed the prime minister, and as we sat at the table, negotiating table, and while the press was still there, recording the opening segment of the meeting, he told our prime minister, "Thank you, prime minister. Turkey had turned its back. Now it's turning its face to the region." So this was the motto, in fact, of that very meeting. In fact, the impact of this initiative, led by Turkey at the time, made a more abiding, left a more abiding impression on the region than, say, the turning down of the motion for the cooperation with the United States in the Turkish parliament on the 1st of March of that year. So
Ambassador, if
this
you
was
can wrap up, sir, please.
yeah, sure. And also yeah, another example to regional cooperation. It was in the year 2008. Another meeting of the Arab League foreign ministers was taking place. It was the regular spring session. And I had also been there for the opening of that session and meeting many of the Arab foreign ministers whom I knew from my previous job back in the headquarters. And we were running for a non-permanent seat of the Security Council. And I came back to my office. Shortly afterwards, an envelope was delivered from the Arab League Secretariat to the embassy. I opened it, and it was informing us that the Arab League foreign ministers have unanimously approved to support the Turkish candidacy to the UN Security Council because they knew that Turkey would take good care of their interests and security concerns as well. Let me stop here. There are many other points that I would like to respond and make my contribution to, but let me wait for the final round. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Göktürk. Ambassador Salahattin, please, sir.
Well, I would follow the same pattern I did in the first round, agreeing with Ambassador Shafak in general, and especially when he cites examples about how the whole Arab world would support Turkey's looking to its own Middle Eastern neighborhood positively and without interfering in their domestic affairs. I cannot agree more, actually, with him on this. And the example that he cited is a very good example because then the whole Arab states supported Turkey's candidature. There was another time later on, 10 years later, when Turkey tried to get the same seat on the Security Council, and I think most of the Arab states opposed it because of the Muslim Brotherhood factor and the interference in domestic affairs. So I agree wholeheartedly with what he said in this regard. On the maritime borders, and I also would like to look forward more than looking back. Looking forward, he recognized the fact that Egypt paid special attention to Turkish needs and interests when we made our agreement with Greece. We left undecided the areas that are of keen interest to Turkey. And we left it until Turkey and Greece resolve their differences. And there too, I see a great potential for diplomacy. And I think Egypt is uniquely qualified not to work out a demarcation agreement between Turkey and Greece and Cyprus, because this is almost impossible. I mean, it's more than 100 years old, and it is not really. I know that the Ambassador Shafak is a lawyer, but I am not, and I don't really believe that the law would resolve conflicts. We need really to change attitudes. So what I see. The model of the Lebanon-Israel agreement on splitting some gas fields in the Eastern Mediterranean, that was worked out with the help of the Americans, with the help of gas companies, with the help of Egyptians, Qataris, to come up with alternative supplies, temporary ones, etc. I see something similar happening in the Eastern Mediterranean, and Egypt should play a key role there in mediating. We have very special relationship with Greece, with Cyprus, and now back with Turkey. And I think we can, and I always promoted in Egypt, in my talks, and both with officials and non-officials in Egypt, that we should play this role. As much as we would like the Turks to intervene on our behalf and try to solve our problems with Ethiopia, we would like also to intervene on their behalf and try to solve their problems with Turkey and Greece. And I'm not talking about the Lausanne Agreement or the 100 years old problems that will not be resolved overnight, but I'm talking about practical arrangements that would allow these three countries to somehow share resources that they have a conflict and fight about today. Maybe provisional agreements, but they could really be confidence-building measures and avoid a lot of conflict. Lastly, on the issue of Turkish regional approach, I think it would be greatly helpful if Turkey would focus more on coordination with Egypt and other interested Arab countries like Jordan, for example, maybe Saudi Arabia, on a potential Turkish role in supporting the day after Gaza war ends arrangement. I see a great potential for Turkey, for example. Turkey is the second or the third largest construction contractor in the world, maybe after the Chinese or so. So Turkey can play a major role in reconstructing Gaza, for example. This is with the Egyptian help and with coordination with Israel, with Saudi Arabia, with other donors countries. This is one thing that we can maybe a more controversial role is as a peacekeeper contributing country. Maybe I don't know how the Israelis would feel about Turkish contribution after the Turkish statement about Hamas. But anyhow, I see great potential of exploration. And if not government to government, we are private citizens, and we belong to organizations like Diplomeds and like your organizations. I think we can talk more together about this and present ideas to our governments. How can Egypt and Turkey work together toward a more peaceful solution and to help Gaza move back to a normal life? So this is a great area of cooperation. I'll stop here.
Ambassador, thank you very much. And now, Dalia, I'll give you 5 minutes, and then we have quite a few questions. So, and I know that Ambassador Salahuddin has to leave at 6:30 sharp because he has another obligation at 7. So, Dalia, please go ahead, and then
I will be very quick. I
and start
promise.
from Ambassador Salahuddin, so he can answer his questions first, if it's okay for the rest of the panelists. Please go ahead.
Okay, I will be short and quick. So actually, I will simply focus on the last points that Ambassador Abdurrahman has just mentioned, which making or giving policy recommendations to leaders in Egypt and Turkey on how to cooperate together in Gaza, because I think it's the most pressing issue right now. And I believe we should not wait until the day after the war. Both sides have a very important role to start doing from now, not just after the war. And it's not limited to only humanitarian aid, but they can use their political leverage and influence on the key sides of the conflict, the Israeli side and the Hamas organization, to help keep things moving on in terms of ceasefire, the release of the Israeli hostages that are now under Hamas grip, securing better circumstances for the Palestinian people in Gaza, and ensuring that the bloodshed in Gaza will stop sooner than later, while we know, like, this should happen with the understanding that this conflict is not coming to an end anytime soon. And it will, unfortunately, it's very highly expected that it will continue for more than a year or so. I remember people 1 year ago with saying that the Russia-Ukraine war will end within a few months, but it didn't. It's still going on, and thus the Israel-Hamas war that we are watching today will still going on for a while. The issue of the reconstruction of Gaza, I think Turkey and Egypt, due to their geographic locations, can very well cooperate later on in the future with Israel on, first of all, reconstructing Gaza in terms of physical reconstruction of buildings and making it a city that humans can live in once again, but also with preparing the Palestinian Authority to take the lead over Gaza once again. Turkey and Egypt can play a very important role with the Palestinian Authority on this issue after Hamas is removed from, because eventually we know, like, sooner or later Hamas will be removed from the leadership of Gaza. So who is coming next? This is a very important question that Turkey and Egypt and other key players in the region, by the way, need to work on from now, not wait until what will happen after the war ends. We know the war is very overwhelming, but a diplomatic parallel track should be progressing in line with the ongoing war, no matter how long it takes. Just one quick last point is Turkey in the Eastern Mediterranean. Of course, no one likes to see Turkey isolated in the Eastern Mediterranean. Yani, when you say Eastern Mediterranean, the first thing that comes to your mind is simply Turkey. The Eastern Mediterranean is literally Turkey. With this huge, it's the country with the greatest or the largest, the longest border in the Eastern Mediterranean. But we have also to look into the reasons why it was isolated, why it was purposefully isolated from the East Med Gas Forum, why it was purposefully isolated from all the economic initiatives that has taken place in this region before. It was mainly because of policies that did not serve Turkey's interests as well. So I think if Turkey do some reforms on these policies, which we have seen it doing this already over the past 2 years, we for sure will see much progress happening in Turkish inclusion in one way or another in all the economic and political initiatives that are happening in the region.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Ambassador Salahuddin, if you allow me, I'll ask you there are 2 questions posed to you. I'll ask them one after another, and if you can answer them. So one is from a fellow Kirkuki, Ershad Hürmüzlü. He says, do you think that a part of the politicians, the societies like the Arab-Turkish Dialogue Association can do something or take any initiatives in this regard? There is one more question that is addressed to you. Is there a possibility to operationalize the Arab gas pipeline as a means to establish a trade-based stable relationship among Turkey, Israel, and Egypt in the future, irrespective of Syria's current conditions? Please go ahead, Mr. Ambassador.
Well, I'm very happy to answer both questions, but especially the first question coming from my dear friend Arshad Hürmüzlü, who is actually the organizer and the host of the Bosphorus Summit that I am participating in today. And it is one of the fora that where Arabs and Turks come together and address the Arab-Turkish cooperation. And yes, I answer him affirmatively, definitely. We can now look into reviving all kinds of Turkish-Arab dialogue fora, the official ones and the informal and non-official one as well. And they can definitely play a major role in the cultural, educational aspects that I mentioned in my first round presentation, but they can also play a role in presenting constructive idea. For example, tomorrow we are going to have a panel about the conflict resolution in general, in our region in general. But there are Turkish and Arab participants who are going to speak, and I'm going to be one of them. And each would present ideas on how to deal with current conflicts and how to work together, Arabs and Turks, to resolve them. I have my own ideas that I published about the Gaza war, how to end it, and how to move from an end of Gaza war to a start of a peace process with the end in sight, the political horizon. But I'm looking forward to hear also Turkish ideas and other Arab ideas, and we can put our heads together and present them to our governments and our public. So I wholeheartedly value those kind of effort and coordination, both on the governmental and non-governmental level. As far as the second question is concerned, this is actually, it reminds me of something I forgot to mention when I mentioned the Lebanese model. What is interesting about the Lebanese model of splitting gas fields with Israel, how the agreement stipulated for a makeup for the Lebanese for the gas until they have production in their own fields. For about 5 years, they are going to get Egyptian gas. And this Egyptian gas is going to come via the Arab pipeline, which is going from Egypt to Jordan, then to Syria, and then to Lebanon. And it could possibly and very easily connect to the Turkish grid lines, to the gas pipelines in Turkey. Actually, we had only missing about 100 kilometers, 100 to 110 kilometers before the war in Syria. And it is quite possible, if we have a settlement in Syria and if we have stability in Syria that would allow us to rebuild this pipeline, we could be really sharing the gas resources through this Arab pipeline, not only with Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, but with Turkey as well, because there is great potential of Syria's gas, both on the territory of Syria and of its shelf in the sea. So great potential for cooperation in the gas area, and that would not exclude Turkey. I like what Dalia said about why Turkey was excluded. This is why I feel safe in the hands of Ambassador Shafak and Dalia. After I leave in 5 or 10 minutes, I will be very well represented there. But I can take one more question if there is any question for me.
Let me check, Ambassador. We have quite a few questions. There are Dalia and Ambassador Göktürk. Well, there's one question. Do you think recent meeting of Egypt and Turkey's presidents will do something good regarding trade relations?
Well, I'm afraid with this, we don't need presidents even to meet. It is going very well. Before coming here, I attended the Turkish-Egyptian Business Association, and we received quite a large delegation of Turkish business people coming with their trade minister, and they met with our president. But they really don't need at all the two presidents to decide anything on their own. They are building new industrial zones, Turkish industrial zones, almost everywhere in Egypt, in the south, in the north, and they are opening up new investments. And the good thing about it that the Turkish businesses that are in Egypt are our best advocates for more Turkish businesses to come in. So we don't need to do any promotion as far as Egyptian government is concerned. It is actually the Turkish businesses that are doing this, because they are reporting quite large profits. And what the governments need to do actually is to encourage those businesses to invest into new areas. And this is why I cited the electric cars, for example, environmentally friendly industries, because we have traditional industries. We have factories for buses, factories. We have factories, textiles. We have other things that are all, of course, gas-based cooperation. But we can look into things that are environmentally friendly and try to develop our own capacities, both of us. And there too, I second what Dalia said about military to military cooperation. There is great potential for co-production. And President El-Sisi, when he was a Minister of Defense, he visited Istanbul in 2013. And there, before, of course, the political rift between the two countries. And there was agreements for more than $200 million of joint production and exports and exchange of expertise, maintenance, overhauls of weapons and the weapon system, all kinds of things. And of course, they were frozen because of the political rift. We should revive them now. We should go back and talk about them. So there too, with this, may I say that I thank you all very much, especially our hosts and our great moderators. Thank you, Gurlu Hanem, for your great effort, and thank you my co-speakers, Ambassador Shafak and Dalia. And I feel very safe with your hands. You represent me as much as I represent myself. Thank you. And I'm really sorry that I need to leave. It's for a good cause. Okay.
Ambassador Salahdin, thank you very much for attending our webinar. And we hope to see you back soon, not in 10 years. So I hope you have a great stay in Istanbul. Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Bye-bye. Good evening.
I will continue with the other questions. Let's see. Yes. There's Ambassador Göktürk. There's one question for you, sir, which is not directly related to Egypt-Turkey relations, but I will pose the question. What is the potential impact of the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas on the Turkish Armed Forces' proposal to acquire F-16 fighter jets from the United States Department of Defense? Go ahead, sir.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I've seen the question. In fact, I have gone through all the questions, and in my last round, I will try to address them as much as possible. For that specific question, the F-16 thing, I think the United States and Turkey will keep the Gaza war beside the issue of the delivery of those airplanes and modernization kits. So I don't think that it will eventually have a meaningful effect or any effect at all on the ongoing talks. Returning to the bilateral and the regional picture, let me just agree with Ms. Ziada. I have many points that I agree with her, but this one is particularly important that I wish to share with the participants and the followers of this panel discussion. She said even in political Islam. In fact, I don't use the term political. I find it redundant. Islamist is sufficient to describe the ideology. And she said that this is understood differently in the Arab world and in Turkey. I totally agree. In fact, the birth of the Muslim Brotherhood, the Islamist movement in the Arab fold, and given the centrality of Egypt and its spread to all other countries in the geography, it was mainly in reaction to the change of the imperial power in the region, and secondly, in 1924, when Turkey abrogated the caliphate. So it was basically in 1928 when Hassan al-Banna started this movement with his initial writings. The essence of what he said was about owning the Arab future, owning the Arab fate. So they had to, everyone in the Arab world at the time was looking for some element, some basis of identity, because it was, the countries were so backward generally. So they had to stick to some cultural basis to proceed. And for Hassan al-Banna, the choice was religion itself. In Turkey, it was influenced by the Muslim Brotherhood and especially Sayyid Qutb's discipline, the writings. But it has otherwise, the Turkish Islamism has its own authentic origins. Also looking for a new unifying identity when the empire was disintegrating, the final phases of the empire. And also during the Republican era, this was the effect of the people who emerged basically from the religious orders, from the two main strains of religious orders. Um, about the Arab gas pipeline, we had many meetings when I was in Cairo. And as Ambassador Salahuddin has accurately described, it would flow through Egypt, Lebanon, Syria, and then would reach Turkey. And it was some 100+ kilometers of pipeline that was to be completed between the two countries. At that time, in the late 2000s, the problem was about the scarcity of the source in Egypt. Now that has changed. Now you have it in abundance, because even at that time you were importing gas also from Israel to meet your daily demands. Now that picture has changed, but the geopolitics are different. So that has to be addressed now. Hopefully, in the years to come, it will be possible for these four countries to discuss and realize that Arab gas pipeline project, because this will be another alternative to bringing your gas to the north. About the leadership for the Islamic world, I never believed that Turkey would be the leader of the Islamic world. Look, Islam, from my own experience and from my own readings and from my own contacts with many Arabs, not limited to officials, my conclusion is that Islam is our common religion which divides us. We have to understand that this should not interfere with our state-to-state relations at any time. If we accept Islam as we accept and live it, exercise it, feel it in our households, then there will be no problem. Ambassador Salahuddin made a very pertinent point, which I missed to respond in my first intervention. He said education, Arabic language. Yes, I was proposing that when I was ambassador in Egypt, because the Arabic speakers in Turkey are usually from the religious schools. And this is not a sufficient kind of Arabic education that people can easily perform their different professions using their knowledge of Arabic. So we have to have droves of Turkish students studying in Egyptian universities. It can be engineering, political sciences, or anything, but in Arabic. So they learn the real thing, how to communicate, how to perform in the real world, and in pursuit of their professions. So let me see if I have missed anything else. Well, I think this is basically it. Thank
Okay,
you.
Ambassador, thank you very much. Dalia, there are two questions addressed to you, and of course, if you want to respond to the comments of Ambassador Göktürk, you're more than welcome. I'll read them out loud to you, one after the other. So the first one is, what roles do the military play in the foreign policy decisions of Egypt and Turkey, and how does it affect their relationship? This is the first one. And the second one is, what dynamics critically influence Turkey's and Egypt's capacity to urgently assume a mediator or facilitator role together in the Israeli-Hamas conflict in the short term? Please go ahead, Dalia.
Right, thank you, Gurlu. So I will start with this. Okay, before addressing the two questions, I want to very quickly comment on the F-16 issue between Turkey and the US. Although the question was not directed to me, but it's one of my favorite topics. So actually, I think the issue is mostly related again to things that does not has to do with the current conflict in the region, but mainly to Turkey's policies that the United States saw offensive somehow, and thus decided to use one of its cards of military cooperation to play with Turkey, I mean, or to try to influence Turkey in this regard. I completely disagree with that, and I don't think like NATO partners should do this to each other. And the issue actually goes back even to a deeper, I mean, to deeper, not deeper, but previous and similar incidents when the US decided to use its military leverage inside the NATO to play these cards with Turkey, which is a rising also military power. It is the second largest army in the NATO, actually. So it's somehow has to do with the complexity of the relationship between the US and Turkey and their competitions within the NATO more than it has to do with our region, I mean. The question about the dynamics that Turkey and Egypt should look for to use in their potential role in the Gaza crisis, I think there are many ways that the two countries should work together now, or the two states should explore now. One of them is that Egypt needs to learn from Turkey's experience regarding the influx of refugees and how to do with them. Several years ago, after the Arab Spring, Turkey experienced a similar crisis on its borders, somehow similar to what Egypt is facing now. And it can actually help Egypt a lot. It was, of course, more complicated and much bigger, but it can provide Egypt with knowledge, the know-how on how to manage the current crisis of refugees, either from Sudan or now from Gaza. This is one important aspect. Another important aspect is the political leverage that both sides have over the conflicting sides and their ability to intervene for or mediate for ceasefire. Although, as we can see, the potential of ceasefire is not ceasefire is not expected to happen anytime soon now. There is an international pressure, and also, by the way, a regional pressure. Yani, I always argue that the fact that most of the Arab countries now in the region does not want, including those who have very good relationship with Israel, does not want to intervene with Israel to end the war and apply ceasefire, is that they also want to see Hamas go. They want to see Hamas finished, honestly. So somehow they are turning their heads away, waiting until Israel finishes Hamas, sort of, so they can then intervene to reconstruct Gaza and rebuild life in Gaza again. So keeping this in mind, I think Egypt and Turkey can prepare for the ceasefire initiative later on, but right now the priority should be given to humanitarian cooperation, to making sure there will be control of the bloodshed and so on. Regarding the military cooperation between the two countries, yes, the potential is very, very high. Look at the geographic locations of the two countries, at the gates of Africa and the Middle East, and also at the gates of Europe. The military bases they control, also the fact that they own the largest two militaries in the Middle East, and the advanced defense industrial capabilities of Turkey combined with, or if it would be combined with also the need of the Egyptian armament market and the capacity, the strong capacity building in the Egyptian military. So and also the role that they can play in securing the Eastern Mediterranean and managing all the security threats in this region, not only the Middle East, but also the Eastern Mediterranean. So all these are points that the two militaries can cooperate on. But and by the way, there was an incident of military cooperation between Egypt and Turkey. This was only in 2012, I think. This was perhaps the first joint military exercise between the two countries. And I think now with the rapprochement process being successful and reconciliation has already been accomplished, there would be great potential for seeing more and more naval exercises and joint military exercises between the Turkish and the Egyptian military in the near future.
I think Ambassador Göktürk wants to respond to that. There's one more question, because we said that the webinar would be around an hour and a half, and some of our participants are starting to leave. So before I give the floor to Ambassador Göktürk to respond to you, Dalia, I want to pose this last question to both of you and get your comments on it. So the question is, how do you address a common challenge such as water scarcity or refugee crisis? Ambassador, so I'd like to have your comments and your comments on this question, sir. Please go ahead. Buyurun. Yes.
To reinforce what Ms. Ziada has said previously, she said that now it becomes an even more pressing need for the two countries to cooperate regionally. Last year when Russia invaded Ukraine, I wrote in one of my articles that geopolitics have a disciplining effect on countries. When such things occur, countries become more prudent in their moves, which would otherwise, which would in different times would give them the liberty to cross sometimes their boundaries. So this very element of a major crisis erupting in the middle of the region does discipline the countries in a favorable sense on the need to cooperate more closely as partners or as allies, as was the case for Europe within the framework of the NATO alliance. So yes, this latest Gaza war may have an effect on the two countries' closer collaboration in working together to contain and eventually improve the security situation in the wider region. On cooperating in matters like a refugee crisis or the water crisis, I think these, as far as the water issue is concerned, the irrigation system, the river systems will have to be assessed on their own merits. I have taken particular note of Mr. Ambassador Salahattin's remarks concerning the Renaissance Dam of in Ethiopia. I know how crucial the proper sufficient flow of the Nile water is for the survival of Egypt in many senses, and the same applies, of course, to our region. And these issues can be cooperated to the extent the parties find commonality of ground. As for the refugee crisis, I think this has more to do with the ways of avoiding it. So, if you have less political crises, less turmoil in the region, there will be less people trying to cross the Mediterranean and try to reach Europe. But of course, in the case of Egypt and in the case of Turkey, we have different sources of new refugees, new different sources of population movements. We can coordinate to the extent they intersect. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Dalia, if we can get your comments on the question, and then there's one comment Ambassador Ayşe Sezgin has sent. I will read that out loud, and then we'll end the session.
Yeah, great. So actually, I will, speaking about the water crisis, I think we have a very successful example of distillation of water, which is in our region, which is Israel. And I think if Turkey and Egypt can cooperate with Israel on this, in addition, of course, to cooperation with other issues like the gas. And so this will help tremendously with this crisis, especially now that we are seeing in Egypt's case, for example, Ethiopia has been going on with the building of the GERD, the Grand Renaissance Dam, and filling the dam without caring for any intervention from any party or any mediation from any party, and even without caring for Egypt or Sudan national interests. So I think we should look for alternative ways to solve this problem. And one of them is looking at the experience of Israel and even seeking cooperation with Israel in this regard. The other issue about the refugees, which is very, very critical right now with all the conflicts that are happening in the region. If you look on the map around Egypt, from all the three sides, literally, there are conflicts that are letting unprecedented number of refugees to come into the country. Look at Turkey also in the map. At least from its southern borders, there are many conflicts that are going on that also allowing or inciting or encouraging a lot of refugees to get into Turkey. So the problem is common. And I think Turkey has more experience on this issue that needs to transfer to Egypt somehow and help Egypt understand how to deal with this crisis economically and also from a humanitarian point of view, which is very critical. And also Egypt can very much help also with Turkey's policies regarding the refugees that come from Arab countries. Again, thanks to Egypt's maybe regional role, the fact that the Arab League exists in Cairo, and all these factors can somehow contribute to Egypt playing a role in managing the refugees crisis that's also affecting Turkey somehow. Speaking about the people who are now fleeing Egypt to Europe via the Mediterranean Sea, as Ambassador Shafak was just mentioned a few minutes ago, yes, it's very critical. And I think one way to stop this is by solving the problem in Libya. And Turkey and Egypt agree on what needs to be done in Libya, elections, the political solution, and everything. So they should give a priority to that to avoid more immigration and refugee-related crises.
Excellent. Dalia, thank you very much. I'll read Ambassador Ayşe Sezgin's comments. She was our ambassador to Slovenia, to Austria, as well as to Malta. She was also a deputy undersecretary. She says, Ms. Zaida mentioned that Turkey should change its policies in the Eastern Mediterranean. Ambassador Salahaddin said that they had good relations with Greece and the Greek Cypriot administration. Maybe it would be logical to advise them to be more reasonable as regards their position in the Eastern Mediterranean. The argument from Greece seeking exclusive economic zone for its islands in the Mediterranean has created this tension. Ambassador Göktürk mentioned that the island of Mace, it's an island 2 nautical miles from mainland Turkey, whereas 360 nautical miles from mainland Greece. Its surface is only 10 square kilometers. So this is especially for our participants that are not fully aware of the technicalities of the issues between the Aegean issues between Turkey and, this is my comment, by the way, Turkey and Greece. Greek side claims that this island should acquire 40,000 square kilometers of maritime jurisdiction area, which will trap Turkey to the Bay of Antalya. Therefore, a new approach is needed from Greece in this very sensitive issue. She says that she wanted to clarify this. I thank Ambassador Ayşe Sezgin for her comments. And I would like to thank our panelists. Obviously, there's a lot of areas of potential cooperation between Turkey and Egypt. We do have differing views, but dialogue is essential. And even this webinar shows that we should be doing more of these events. I would like to thank our collaborators, Ankara Policy Center, the director Fatih Ceylan, GTF and diplomats, and our participants. Thank you. We exceeded our time a little bit, and thank you very much for your patience, and hope to see you at another event. Thank you. Good evening to all.